Good morning and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Technology. At this time, we ask you please silence all cell phones and electronic devices to minimize disruptions throughout the hearing. At any time throughout the hearing, please do not approach the dais. If you have testimony you wish to submit for the record, you may do so via email at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Once again, that is testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. My name is, and welcome to our hearing on open data compliance. I'm Councilmember Jennifer Gutierrez. I'm the chair for the Council's Committee on Technology. I want to thank all of you, anyone who is online, and of course, Speaker Adams for trusting me to lead this committee for another term. Open data is the lifeblood of effective governance, especially as we witness the increasing integration of automated decision-making into every part of our lives. Ensuring the quality of the data feeding into these tools is paramount. It directly influences the accuracy and reliability of the decisions produced by those tools. Municipal data is one of the most fundamentally important resources for a functional city government. Without clean, accurate data, the allocation of emergency resources and decision-making in critical moments can result in life-changing outcomes. Decisions made based on bad data could mean a family loses their home, their children, or their benefits that keep the lights on and food on the table. Issues of inequity that were only known anecdotally in communities for decades can now be verified by accurate data. The Open Data Portal is a beacon of information, and we have a legally mandated and ethical responsibility to ensure its quality and accessibility in the evolving landscape of data and its uses. New York City's Open Data Law was one of the first of its kind in the nation when it was enacted in 2012, and is a leading example in municipal open data operations. Councilmember Gail Brewer was the sponsor of Local Law 11 in 2012, which became the Open Data Law. The strides made in open data operations, as highlighted in the annual Open Data Progress Reports, showcase the tangible impacts of public data accessibility in our city's advancement. However, despite MODA's efforts in improving data availability, there are still data sets which are either overdue, unavailable, or instances in which the content of some data sets does not seem to align with their descriptions on the portal. The committee is also concerned about the staffing structure and resources, mainly resources that are allocated to this invaluable part of the city's infrastructure. Shout out to all the open data coordinators. Understanding the intricacies of data maintenance and operational processes is vital to addressing these challenges effectively. Moreover, as AI continues to evolve and NYC Open Data is increasingly used to train AI models, the Open Data Portal becomes an even more valuable resource. Therefore, in addition to availability, ensuring the quality of data is more important than ever before. As such, the committee is eager to hear from the admin, advocates, and the public to understand how we can collectively elevate New York City's open data operations and continue to lead in data transparency. Whether in the realm of AI or governmental services, the integrity of our data infrastructure is non-negotiable. This committee looks forward to learning about opportunities to collaborate with administration and support open data, as well as hearing from advocates about best practices in promoting governmental transparency and accountability. I'd like to thank the Technology Committee staff, Policy Analyst Charles Kim, Legislative Counsel Irene Bayovsky, and my Chief of Staff Anna Bessendorf, and Senior Advisor Anya Lair for putting together this hearing. At this point, we do not have any committee members, but we will shout them out as they trickle in. And now I will turn it over to Committee Counsel for administrative proceedings.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Chair, for your excellent statement. We will start with testimony from the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, and I want to welcome Marta Nordic, the Chief Analytics Officer and Deputy Commissioner for Data and Analytics, and Zach Fetter, Open Data Program Manager, who will be available for questions. Before you begin your testimony, I kindly ask you to raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and answer honestly to councilmember testimonies? Oh, questions, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. You can begin your testimony.
Okay. Ooh, yep, that is different. I have done one before, but it was on Zoom, and I muted and unmuted myself successfully. So, yes, it's my first time with a live mic. Very exciting. Okay, trying again. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, soon-to-be members of the Technology Committee. My name is Martha Norick, and I am the New York City's Chief Analytics Officer and the Deputy Commissioner for Data and Analytics at the Office of Technology and Innovation, or OTI for short. I'm joined today by Zachary Fader, the city's Open Data Program Manager. And I'm excited to be here today to discuss our important ongoing work to fulfill the requirements of New York City's open data law and our progress connecting New Yorkers with the data that runs their city. And I'd like to thank this committee for its interest in and support of the open data program. New York City Open Data is the city's most important public data resource, with billions of rows of data viewed by more than 1 million people each year. Prior to this administration, New York City Open Data was jointly managed by the Legacy Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, or MODA, and the Legacy Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications, or DOIT. Staff from each of these offices worked in tandem as the New York City Open Data team. Technical work, like building the automated processes that move data from agencies to the Open Data platform, was led by the DOIT staff, while agency and public-facing engagement work was led by the MODA staff. When Mayor Adams's Executive Order 3 consolidated the city's technology agencies under OTI in January of 2022, the Open Data team was also united within a single office. This new arrangement strengthened the virtuous cycle of rigorous data analysis and high-quality data. The same necessary work to make data sets accessible to the city's data analysts and scientists, ensuring that they're structured properly and documented thoroughly, is also vital for making that same data accessible to the New Yorkers who use open data. New York City Open Data functions as a collaboration between our team and every city agency and office. Shout out to any open data coordinators in the room. Agencies share their data and their subject matter expertise. We provide governance, help with data and technical knowledge, and lead broader public engagement. The Open Data team has 3 main functions. We support open data coordinators and agencies. We manage the technical platform and pipelines that underpin New York City Open Data. And we work on making public data more accessible for New Yorkers. Each agency and office has its own ODC, approximately 100 in total, who are responsible for identifying, structuring, documenting, managing, and communicating about their agency's public data sets. Nearly all ODCs have other responsibilities in addition to their work on open data and regularly work with agency colleagues across information technology, data analytics, legal, and communications roles to fulfill their duties. It is also important to note that given the breadth of information that most agencies share on open data, ODCs serve primarily as facilitators between their agencies and the open data team. They rely on experts across different divisions and teams to contextualize the data their agency publishes. They then use that same context to create data documentation and respond to public inquiries about this data. Supporting agencies and ODCs is critical given the number of agencies contributing to open data and the variety of forms that data can take. To start, we create and promote open data standards and best practices, derived from our own experience, conversations with city colleagues, and learning from other municipalities. For example, in 2022, we released a simplified data dictionary template for more comprehensive and easier to use data documentation. We updated the technical standards manual to refocus the document on open data coordinators and the dataset lifecycle, and published a data quality standards checklist used to vet datasets before publication. Our technical work is focused on keeping datasets up to date. In recent years, our team has employed new tools to build automations more quickly. These automations transfer data from its source city database to the Open Data portal at a specified frequency. We have also piloted an initiative to empower some agencies to create and manage their own updates and automations. Accessibility is a hallmark of our open data initiatives. Our thinking around accessibility is directly informed by what we've learned from New Yorkers, best practices across the country and around the world, and New York City's open data law. We remain focused on helping more New Yorkers understand and make meaningful use of this data through public programs such as the Open Data Week Festival, which we're celebrating this year from March 16th to March 24th, and Open Data Ambassadors, which has brought introductory classes to academic institutions, library branches, local elected officials, including members of this committee. These initiatives are products of our long-standing partnerships with the civic technology nonprofit Beta NYC and the art collective Data by Design, as well as the enthusiasm of many New Yorkers who have volunteered to share their skills and knowledge. I thank the Committee on Technology for the opportunity to testify today and will now take council members' questions.
Thank you.
I'd like to recognize Councilmember Bob Holden, who's just joined us. Great, thank you so much for your testimony. I know I might, the first couple questions might be a little bit just asking for you to expand a little bit about on what's your testimony. So in the last 2 years since the creation of OTI, kind of the folding in of all these relevant agencies, you mentioned in your testimony that this has been helpful to improving data analysis and high quality data. Can you expand a little bit on how that's happened?
Yes, absolutely. The Office of Data Analytics, the Legacy Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, we have 3 main teams. We have a team of data scientists that are actually huge users of open data themselves, so we get asked frequently to answer questions about New York City government using open data. We also have a engineering and governance practice, and then also the open data team. So bringing together the technical team that manages the pipelines that move data from one place to another, and having sort of more direct connection between our analysts and the technical team that builds those pipelines has really helped us better understand and better document and better make use of open data. And I think, but the best data sets are data sets that are being used frequently by people, because that way people notice when there's issues or if they have questions about the data set. That leads to better documentation if those questions are then being answered and memorialized in the documentation themselves. And that's what I was referring to with sort of that rigorous cycle, is that as users of open data, being more closely connected to to sort of all members of the open data team and the formerly distributed across 2 agencies open data team, I think has really improved that cycle of documentation and publishing.
Great. And so how many employees does your office have?
On open data or all together?
All together, and then my subsequent question is on open data.
Okay. Our office, the Office of Data Analytics, has 1, 2.
Oh boy.
I should have added before live math. This is
small
not fun.
It's okay.
I think we have about 18 people now total. Somewhere.
18,
we actually
around 20, I think. But
oh man.
North or south.
Okay.
Distribution list.
Oh boy.
We actually recently welcomed some members from the Mayor's Office for Economic Opportunity who have joined the engineering and governance program. So before that sort of merger, we had I think 9 folks, and now we have more than that. Now we have like 20. I will get you an exact
Please,
answer.
yeah, you can send it over. And do you have a sense of how many you have working on
Yes.
open data?
Open Data has on the Office of Data Analytics side, a full-time staff of 4. We also have a full-time data engineering resource in the applications division at OTI and a part-time business analyst resource at the applications division of OTI. So 5.5 total.
Okay, and then you just said in your previous answer that you went from 9 to potentially 20. We're not sure. Can you describe a little bit how the staffing has changed, maybe from the last admin to this admin?
Sure. We've, I think like many offices across the city had, some staff attrition, and given the budgetary situation of the city, have not yet had the opportunity to replace those staff. I think
Do you have a sense? I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you have a sense of what how large the staff was then?
Yes, our previous full-time staff was 9.
9. Okay. Okay.
On open data.
Sure. And do you share, do you have any employees in MODA also with OTI, working on open data that are also working at OTI, or are they full-time?
We're all at OTI.
Okay.
So everybody's at OTI. The Office of Data Analytics is one of the divisions in OTI. The Applications Division is another division, and that is where sort of OTI's main data engineering resources sit. So the data engineer that works on open data is in the Applications Division, but we're all part of OTI.
Okay. So I guess there's overlap. Do the data scientists or other employees assist other agencies within, or other units with ATI, or do other agency staff assist MODA, or?
Yeah, both ways. Our data scientists primarily work on sort of scoped analytics projects with other agencies. We sometimes do scoped analytics projects within OTI itself. We also the data science team works on sort of priority projects from City Hall, and sometimes also gets called in the event of an emergency situation to do kind of like SWAT team style analytics, I guess. I don't know, that maybe that's not the right phrase, but and then the open data team works primarily with open data coordinators at every different agency, and also works on public engagement and runs the open data help desk as well.
Okay. Great. And then are there internships?
Yeah. Yes, we've had a variety of really lovely and wonderful interns over the years, both urban fellows, folks from the AmeriCorps Vista program, and also just regular agency interns as well.
Great. And you guys now are in the Metro Tech space?
We are,
Yeah.
Metro Tech.
Great. And do you still is there any other staff remaining at the Gold Street office?
No.
No. Okay. No one from MODA specifically is at the Gold Street address.
All of MODA is part of OTI now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But and so all of OTI is at.
All of OTI is most of OTI is at the Metro Tech campus, across a couple different Metro Tech buildings. 311 is at Maiden Lane. And I think there's some other additional OTI employees at Maiden Lane as well.
I've been there. Okay. In the 2018 local law that codified the mayor's office of data analytics, there was a piece about training for agency staff, community board members, and the public. Do you know if there's a difference between the trainings held for agency staff versus community members and the public on the open data?
There's the support we give to open data coordinators and sort of onboarding them into the open data program, understanding sort of their responsibilities under the open data law, helping them sort of navigate their own agencies and getting data published. All of the materials, though, that we use to train ODCs are available on the Open Data portal. On the very bottom of the Open Data site, there's a little section that says for Open Data coordinators. Anybody can go there to see all of the different training materials and materials that we've created over the years to support Open Data coordinators. So the public is certainly welcome to look at that. It's aimed a little bit more towards city employees who are working on the Open Data program in the context of being the named Open Data coordinator. And then on the public engagement side, we have, in collaboration with Beta NYC, the Open Data Ambassadors program, which I know you're very familiar with, Chair. We also have programming Open Data Week is coming up soon, a huge week of amazing public offerings. We also encourage agencies to do public engagement around their open data sets throughout the year, whether that's publishing, including that in agency communications like newsletters or tweets or other sorts of ways that agencies feature their own work. And we look to open data coordinators to kind of lead the charge there.
And how often are there trainings for the open data coordinators at these agencies? Like how often do they need to?
So we regularly have office hours with agency open data coordinators. Depending on the agency, for larger agencies where they're processing a ton of data and generating a ton of data, we'll have like a monthly recurring meeting. And then broadly, we have at least once a year a training for all of the open data coordinators. But we're talking to open data coordinators, and as Martha was describing, troubleshooting specific problems all the time.
Right. And for some of those bigger agencies, what are some of those larger agencies where you're kind of checking in on them more frequently and maybe that are utilizing this like office hours more often?
Yeah, and to be clear, the office hours are available to everyone, and we have office hour meetings with a lot of agencies, but we do have these like regular check-ins with like what comes to mind are like the health department, the transportation department, Department of Education, the police department. It really, some of it depends on like current data sets in the pipeline. So as we have like a larger queue of things that are getting ready to be published, we will frequently have like regular meetings with agencies that are about to have their data.
I'm glad
go
you
live.
mentioned both PD and DOE, because on this side, I feel like a lot of the bills that were forced to intro are reporting bills. And so I'm glad that you mentioned both of those agencies. I'd also like to acknowledge Councilmember Eric Bodger, who's joined us, and he's new to the committee. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you.
This is a hot topic right here. How do you see MODA's role in New York City Artificial Intelligence Action Plan announced by Mayor Adams?
The way I think about our role is that all of the advances in artificial intelligence and large language models and in these sort of, both new and not new applications of machine learning and artificial intelligence really depend on good data and also understanding how data are generated. So the example that I like to talk about is 311, right? Like, how many people in this room have seen a rat and not called 311? Great. Okay.
Every time.
Every day. Sometimes, but people sometimes use 311 calls about rats as sort of a proxy for understanding where rats are in the city. But it's really that data are generated by a process of New Yorkers calling in about something. And we know that New Yorkers do not call in about everything they see, and we know that they don't call in about things that they see at equal rates across the city. So if you're using the 311 data set, which is a huge, people think it's so big, so it must be perfect for everything. The bigger the data, the better. And don't really understand sort of how that data is generated and how to understand, some of the biases or some of the gaps that data set contains, not because the data is bad, but because the way that it's made is that people call 311, and not everybody does that, and not everybody does that at every, for every rat they see in the city. So I think really kind of, we sit very close to, we use this data. Our data scientists are sort of navigating these same questions every day about what is a data set, what type of questions is a data set appropriate to answer. If we're using this data set to answer this question, what would we be missing? And I think sort of that knowledge and that understanding of kind of, and documentation around the data and what it means and what it doesn't mean and what you can use it for and what you should be careful about are really going to be fundamental to the AI, the advancement of using these new tools throughout government.
Do you know if there's any companies using open data as training for their AI tools or utilizing them for their AI tools?
I don't know. I know that there are companies that use open data to check licensing, for example, like the for hire vehicle companies use the Taxi and Limousine Commission's list of drivers who have a TLC license to sort of validate their drivers, but I don't know off the top of my head of anybody using it for AI.
Who maintains the open data portal? Do you work with vendors?
We do work with a vendor. The vendor we work with is Socrata, which was acquired a little while ago by a company called Tyler Technologies. Mm-hmm. Socrata is a platform that's used by many different municipal and federal agencies for open data. And one of the things we're really excited about working on is sort of organizing other municipalities and fellow users of the Socrata platform to try to kind of drive the development agenda and user experience of that platform a little more directly.
And do you use Socrata servers to store data uploaded to all NYC open data portal, or is the data hosted on your own servers? I guess, what is their role? What are they doing? What are they directly responsible for, and how long is the contract?
You want to talk about the contract?
So it's an annual contract.
Okay.
But we have been contracting with them since, I think, 2012. So it's a long-standing relationship. As far as, you could talk more about like where the data is, but when the data is available to the public, so when you're accessing the data through NYC Open Data, you are going through the data gets uploaded to the internet, and Tyler, Socrata, whatever you want to call them, is the company that's responsible for hosting it at that point.
Okay,
They have a
so
they have
So
a
they're
cloud
not-
server that is
Yeah.
hosting the data. The data sort of move from the New York City, from New York City to that cloud platform. Only the public data is on that cloud platform, and Socrata maintains the platform. So all of the sort of user experience tools and things where you can interact with open data on the platform, those are Socrata tools. And similarly, also maintain and document the API. Which is a way that many people interact with open data, is using the Socrata API.
And do you know how much the contract with Socrata is for annually?
It is, last year it was, I think about,
You can get that to us.
okay, we'll get back to
You
you.
don't-
It's in the hundreds, it's like
300,
$300,000.
close to $400,000.
Oh, okay.
Not-
Somewhere in that 300 to 400.
And they're responsible for maintaining the portal, essentially. Okay. Okay.
We are responsible for the content. So when you land on the Open Data portal and it says "Welcome to Open Data" and it's blue and there's nice
And
little
collecting all the data and all
yes,
that.
that's all us. But in terms of the actual I'm clicking on this button and something is happening, they're designing and maintaining the website.
Great. In that same local law, 22 of 2018, it also listed one of the duties as collaborating with other agencies to facilitate data sharing. What tools exist to facilitate data sharing between agencies, or what protocols exist?
There are. It very much depends on the type of data that is being shared. Our office is working very closely with the Office of Information Privacy, which is also part of the Office of Technology and Innovation, and we've been working very closely with them, prior to the merger into OTI as well. The city has all sorts of type of data. Those data are all subject to various different regulatory regimes, whether that's HIPAA or FERPA or the state's general welfare law, and each of those different laws have, the city's Personally Identified Information Act. Each of those laws has their own sort of set of stipulations about why data can be shared, what purposes it can be shared for, who it can be shared with, and what our office does is help agencies sort of navigate that regulatory environment, and through sort of templatization of data sharing agreements, memorandums of understanding, work on the citywide data integration agreement, and then also on the technical side, helping agencies be able to unite data together, whether that's through sort of record linkage techniques, so trying to look to see that two people across two different data sets are probably the same person, or whether that's uniting data sets on geography, so geocoding data sets and understanding sort of which rows are in a particular administrative boundary. So I think we provide agencies with sort of the playbook, I would say, more on the data sharing side. Here's how to do it. Here's what you need to do. Here's who you need to talk to. And then finally, on when they are ready to kind of knit those data sets together, here are the technical tools to support you doing that.
In the last hearing that the council, chaired by Councilmember Holden at the time, had on open data, there was conversation about a service called Data Bridge. Is that still to utilize this data sharing between agencies? Is Data Bridge still functioning today?
Yes, the Office of Technology and Innovation and the Legacy, Do It agency has various different sort of database resources for agencies. Data Bridge is one of those tools where agencies can send data to be hosted sort of in a database. Agencies still do use it, but I would defer to my colleagues at the Applications Division and the Office of Technology and Innovation for more details about that.
Great. I want to move to the data sets piece. I think the fact that you have a help desk that can help kind of just work with anyone who's got ideas on data sets, I think is really cool. And so something that was flagged was if there is unavailability of a data set, there, the prompt is other data sets have been prioritized ahead of this one. Can you share a little bit of who is in charge of this process and how you determine your prioritization process? And does the public have access to how data sets are prioritized?
You want to answer that one?
Sure. So the first way the public has access to how data sets are prioritized is we have actually a data set that tells everyone what is going to get released. Yeah, the data sets all the way down.
Yeah.
And if anything changes, so let's say there's a shift where more work is needed than was expected, that rationale gets shared alongside the date when that change happened and what the new date is. So that is all transparent for anyone to see. As far as the prioritization, there's a couple of factors at play. One is based on demand. So one of the things I think is enshrined in the law, we have in our technical standards manual and very much encourage agencies to do, is where there is a topic that they're getting more requests for that they have maintained data about. Sometimes there's a topic where there is not that data set in existence. That data set is something that will encourage them to prioritize for release. Oftentimes for agencies, that's also a practical and like just logistically easier because they're otherwise releasing that data set to the public via FOIL. So instead of fielding dozens and dozens of FOIL requests for a data set, they could put it up on open data and anyone could grab it whenever they want much more easily. Ultimately, the prioritization and just the publication of data, we work with agencies, but it's not our data, it's theirs. They know it far better than we do. And so we also turn to them for that prioritization just based on the other things they're working on and the internal knowledge of those systems and what that data entails.
And why are some data sets removed from the portal? Can you expand a little bit about when that happens? Do you announce it? And do you believe that those data sets that are removed should still be available?
So I guess to the question, if we announce the data sets, you'll be surprised.
Why do you remove them? Why do you remove data sets? I'm sorry, I thought you were
No. You'll be surprised to hear there's actually a data set of data sets that have been removed. So there really is a data set for everything.
That makes sense. That's totally on brand.
And with that actually is an explanation of why the data set was removed.
Oh, okay.
We have recently been focusing actually on removing a lot more data sets. We used to talk a lot about the number of data sets we have, and when you're first starting a public data program, it's important to add more and more data sets. After a while, the number of data sets, I think we're currently sitting somewhere around 3,500. It becomes difficult for someone to confirm that they have the right data set or to find the data set they're looking for. So one of the things we're doing with agencies right now, when we get a new data set, we are looking at what they've published already. We're looking at the totality of what they are planning to share and encouraging them as much as possible to take that data and basically share it together. So let's say if there's a data set from 1 year and we get new data from a different year, we're not going to publish that as a new data set anymore. We'll take that and just have an ongoing data set across different years. Or if we have related programs that follow a similar schema, a similar structure, those would also be combined. Other reasons that data sets get removed, sometimes it's because the program no longer exists anymore in the same way that it did. So there were some, let's say, city efforts during the height of the COVID pandemic, let's say around like social distancing, that there was data that was being collected on, and some of that data is no longer active. But we will frequently preserve data, or in almost every case, we'll preserve these data sets as historical data. Okay. So changing the title to indicate this is not something that's ongoing. There's a element for each data set that metadata element that tells you like what to expect for how often it's updated, and that will also be marked as historical. Again, just really what we're focusing on is like communicating clearly of like what's active and what's not, and trying as much as possible to have what's available actually meet those expectations.
And is that historical data still living?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can still see it, but it just is not
Yeah, totally. Okay, great.
not actively updated.
That's great.
Those are the majority of reasons why we're removing data sets.
Wonderful. Are there any data quality standards that agencies are required to follow?
We have a data quality checklist that is also available on the Open Data site in the section of resources for open data coordinators that I referenced earlier. That is the checklist that we give to agencies to say, work through this when you're working on creating the data set for public release. And then we go over that same checklist once we receive the data. So hopefully agencies have already worked through it, but if there's anything that slips through the cracks, our team also reviews against that same checklist, and then anybody can take a look at that checklist and see, the things we're looking for. We're looking for completeness, for there not to be sort of randomly missing data. We're looking for good documentation.
Privacy review?
Oh, we also do a privacy review. Data that is released on the Open Data portal. Generally, we try not to, or we're not releasing personally identifying information unless there's a compelling public interest reason. For example, licensing or DOB applications sometimes contain the name of the engineer that is on the application, for example. But we review data sets to make sure that there's not the possibility for identification or re-identification of
So you all,
personal
the
information.
same folks, are cleaning that data as well?
We don't do additional cleaning after we receive the data from the agency, but we will look at the data set and go back to the agency and say, hey, here's what we noticed. Please address this, and sort of resubmit the data set.
And sometimes, the data that's on open data reflects the data that agencies have internally, generally. So it's not as if we're taking what agencies have and are using and coming up with this pristine version otherwise. But the really important thing, as Martha was describing, is we want to make sure that if there is something that's not clear about the data, if there's some error in it or some process that's not intuitive, that is clearly explained, that anyone could understand what that is and use that in their analysis or
Do you
count for
ever
that.
get feedback once the data is published from folks about that have concerns about okay, what is some of that feedback sound like? Because I have heard from folks as well, and so just trying to think through what is an effective way so that there's not a poor intern somewhere dedicating their life to this for months.
I have been
Which
the intern,
happens.
and we would like to
which is a
pair that
fun,
person.
could be fun, but not consistently. We should be more efficient.
Absolutely. One, I definitely encourage that intern to attend an Open Data Ambassadors class so that they can learn everything there is to know about the Open Data portal. Second, I think this is the kind of the real reason the Open Data Help Desk exists, is that we welcome and actively look for people to in that virtuous cycle of using the data and discovering things about the data, to then come to us if they have questions about something, if they spot something that seems wrong, or that they are interested in understanding more. If it's a question about the portal itself or something about kind of the implementation of the program, we can field it ourselves. If it's a question about the data, an agency's data, then we'll connect that person with the Open Data Coordinator from that agency, who can help kind of run down whatever additional detail or knowledge that person is looking for. And we actually recently had our 10,000th help desk inquiry.
All right.
Which unfortunately was someone looking to delete their account. I wish it were a cooler one, but it was not.
Oh.
I know. Maybe we'll count the 10,000th one instead, yeah.
I would just want to shift gears a little bit. Thank you so much for all of this background. Can I pass it to Councilmember Holden? You have a question? Yeah.
Thank you both for your testimony. And I have a question on, how many data sets that should be available are not currently accessible on the Open Data portal. Do you have a...
We have So I can talk a little bit about the process that we use to identify data sets that should be on the portal, and then also where you can look to see data sets that have been identified for release but have not yet been released.
So what's that, coming soon? Does it?
Yeah, exactly. It's a teaser trailer for open data in a world where this data set is
Coming
released.
soon.
Yes,
Yeah.
coming soon to an open
What
data
is
portal
soon?
near you.
Yeah, it doesn't give you actual target dates, though.
It does have the target dates on there.
Oh, it does?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Every data set has a data set release date for if it's going to be released in the future, but hasn't yet been released. We don't allow for just sort of like nebulous someday data set release. It has to have a date. So to identify, and every year in the yearly compliance process for agencies fill out a workbook that has where they identify any data set that has that should be released on the Open Data Portal. Those data sets include data sets that have been released on the agency's website, and we review agencies' websites periodically to check for data sets that they've released on their websites but that are not available on open data. We also, agencies that release data via FOIL, that data, as Zachary mentioned, should go on the Open Data Portal, or has to go on the Open Data Portal. It also helps agencies because then if that data is being FOILed repeatedly, they can just point people towards the Open Data Portal and people can self-serve. Agency, those compliance workbooks, so all the agencies' sort of review of the data sets that they have and that they or maybe new data sets, that's all released, that's all available publicly. And that, as I mentioned, those workbooks include sort of every data set that an agency has identified that has not yet been released but will be released, and a publication schedule associated with that data set. If there are data sets that are not on the that are not included in that sort of plan for release or are not on the Open Data Portal but that people think should be, we also have a way to ask for an open data data set through that help desk, and agencies have to respond to that inquiry with by either releasing the data or publicly saying why they can't release that data. And the reasons that agencies sometimes can't release a data set is if it contains personally identifying information or sort of otherwise sensitive information. And we work with agencies to try to think about aggregation methods or other ways to sort of be responsive to that request without sort of compromising individual level information if there's an ability to sort of aggregate data up, by a geography or something like that.
You mentioned 311 before. Mm-hmm. Do you get a lot of complaints about the data sets on 311? It's very big, and I think it is difficult to work with sometimes because of the size. It doesn't respond super fast on the website. We use the 311 data set as an example for the Open Data Ambassadors training for that reason, because it's definitely one of the most popular data sets to work with, and also has, there's some, with a 35
Yeah, it's continually growing.
million row data set. It is. We are constantly looking for ways to improve the performance of that data set on the website because we know it is frustrating for people to interact with.
You make suggestions to the agencies, especially 311. I have a lot of complaints on that. Mm-hmm. Just the information that even like NYPD, if you use the app, there's pull down menus, but they're very general sometimes, and it's not very specific. And the responding officers can't even input what they would, what the real solution is. So it's flawed data already. We're seeing that a lot, and I get a lot of complaints from my constituents on that.
So continue with my theme of there's a data set for that. We actually just published a data set of suggestions for 311.
Good.
I know this because I was involved in this publication.
That was just launched?
Just recently, yes.
All right, then I'm going to really, that's an important, because I'm going to get I get a ton of complaints already, but that'll actually, people will actually feel maybe we're getting somewhere now.
Yeah, my recollection is structured what the complaint is, what is the agency that's responsible for that issue, and then what is the status of that complaint.
Right. Could I ask one more? Okay. All right, just I want to bring up automation of data sets, and I think it's lagging at this point. I think it's been 874 data sets currently on the New York City Open Data Portal have been flagged for automation. Yet, however, 425 of them, nearly 50%, have not been automated. Can you tell us what the holdup? Or?
So there's a flag that every agency, when they submit a data set to us, and they indicate whether that data set could potentially be automated. It's important that there's, within that potential, there's some assessment between their team and ours as to what actually makes sense. So we have some data sets, for example, that are updated once every couple of years, and they absolutely can be automated if we wanted them to. But given the amount of work it would take to make that automation and versus the work to send that file over once every couple of years, that would be something that we would not prioritize. There are certainly other data sets that can potentially be
Can you give me
automated.
an example, like of one?
A lot of the data, let's say that city planning is responsible for, that's updated like when the census comes out, we could have automations for that, but it is so infrequent that the amount of work that would go into it, we prioritize
Outward,
things
yeah.
exactly where the data is actually coming in frequently every day, multiple times a day.
Our ideal is that as many data sets that can be automated, will be automated. And, as Zachary said, we're prioritizing and we have limited resources to build these automations. It's not sort of like, always push button move data. It requires, some engineering work. And so we are, but we know that that's the best user experience for people who are interacting with open data, is that for those automations to just be there and having that data be refreshed without sort of the drama of like who's on vacation. So it is our goal to get there, and we are working as quickly as we can with the resources that we have, and it's something we hope to be constantly improving on.
Great. All right. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Holden. Next, we have questions from Councilmember Botcher.
Your unit, the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, you're housed within the Office of Technology and Innovation?
Yes.
And it's the same office under which the 311 team operates.
311 is also a unit of OTI, yes.
And what's the name of that unit, the 311?
311?
311 unit?
That's it, yeah. Just 311.
Got it.
To my knowledge, I don't know if they have another cool name, but.
Got it. What's your opinion of 311 data writ large? Do you think that 311 data is an accurate snapshot of what's actually going on in the city? Do you think, as folks who work in data professionally, do you think the data is really reflective of what's going on there, or are there issues with it, like people fatigue about reporting to 311? Some neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's a great
reflecting
question. I think, we actually, we work with the 311 data set ourselves all the time. The Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, the Office of Data Analytics has a data science team within it as well. So we're both, publishing this data and using this data for analyses around New York City. I think it is important to always remember how that data comes to be, which is that people call or text or use the 311 mobile app to report something that they see. And not everybody does that at equal rates. Reasons could include sort of, discomfort with the idea of interacting with government generally, distrust of government. Could be, as you're right, like general reporting fatigue, like how can I actually call New York City about every rat I see? Like that's a lot of calls about 311. Or just generally, I think there's a lot of reasons why people do or do not call 311. And I think sometimes I wouldn't necessarily describe that as an issue with the data so much as that is an issue about the data generation process, right? Like, ideally, we all trust 311. We all, trust government to deliver on your, resolving a complaint. And, it can
Most
be
of
hit or
the
miss
time.
sometimes. So I do think it's important when you're using the 311 data set to keep that in mind. I don't think that there, there's also situations where people use 311, are like very enthusiastic users of 311, and there are lots of complaints about a particular thing that, in another neighborhood or with another person, they wouldn't call 311 as frequently. So, yeah, I think it is a very valuable data set, and some of the cool things that you could do with the 311 data, and with sort of if you have another data set that has another view of that same issue. So the Department of Health, for example, does rat indexing inspections, where in a particular neighborhood they are going to every single house, regardless of whether or not there was a complaint about a rat there. So we can actually look to see, who's complaining in that neighborhood about rats versus where are those health inspectors actually finding rats when they're just going to every single address. So opportunities for sort of ground truthing 311, they're rare, but when they happen, they're really exciting because you can really kind of see like how those, the data generation process influences sort of what you see when you look and analyze the data. This is like my favorite topic in the whole world, so I can nerd about it forever, but...
One of the data sets I'm interested in is the resolution of 311 complaints. As my colleagues and I could attest, we get complaints from constituents whose 311 complaints are marked resolved or condition not observed when they're standing there on the phone looking at it and it's clearly there. What are your opinions of that data set, and how do you interact with the 311 team on improving that?
I would say generally from the open data perspective, we work very closely with agencies, the 311, being no exception, to make sure that the data that is on the open data portal, reflects accurately the data as it's being collected. And I would encourage you to address these questions around the data generation process and also the agency's responsibility for the fulfilling their SLA for 311 directly with those agencies. Our sort of purview is making sure that data is publicly available and that accurately reflects the 311 system as it stands. In terms of changing that system or changing the ways that agencies are responding to 311 requests, I would say that that's outside of our purview.
This is something that we've, at a previous hearing with the OTI commissioner that we discussed, and one of the dynamic here is that you process the data that you get from 311. 311 basically relies on the agencies to resolve the complaints, and if the agencies aren't processing the 311 request accurately, if they're closing the ticket when it's not resolved, or if they're not observing the condition, the 311 team, they just, they rely on the agency to accurately process the complaint. So one thing I'd love to dig more into at a future hearing perhaps is what is 311 doing to really lean on the agencies to make sure that they're not closing 311 complaints and that they're not resolved, that they're not marking them down as not observed. Who's really taking ownership of that? Because that will really help increase usership of 311 if people have better and better experiences with it, if they see it having real-time results. Thank you.
I think it also that's a real testament to the power of public data, right? Like, we know this is happening, you can look to see what the outcome of a given service request is because that data is on the open data portal, and people can use it to understand sort of how service delivery is happening and then raise those questions. So I'm thrilled to hear that people are using the 311 open data set for that exact purpose.
One more question. There are customer satisfaction surveys that go out following 311 experiences. Is that a data set that you work with?
Yes, we have worked with that data set to some extent, and I know that 311 has plans to publish that data in a future release.
Is that not currently on the open data portal?
The individual level information is not currently on the open data portal. I would have to consult with the 311 team about what their plans are in terms of releasing that information. But it will be available. The release plan will be available just like any new data set. Release is published with a timeline for release. And I think it's an exciting data set and definitely one that I think will be in heavy usage on the open data portal.
That's going to be one of the most important data sets that we have, a data set that reflects New Yorkers' satisfaction with their 311 outcomes.
Yeah, with the agency
tracking
resolutions
that
and
over
complaint.
time,
Yeah.
looking for where there's room for improvement. I would love to be notified of when that information comes out, because that's something we could really work with as council members.
Sure.
Thanks, Councilmember Botcher. Councilmember Holden?
No, I just want to just follow up on that one, because the survey that the app gives you on 311, that should be automated, where we get the data right away. We can know satisfaction from different districts, from different boroughs, because I keep filling that out, and I don't know if it goes anywhere, So why isn't that automated? Like where that data just gets uploaded, right there into the data sets. Because right now, I don't know if it works for every agency, if they're all doing the survey. I guess they are, because most of my complaints on 311 are NYPD related, parking and other issues. But I've been filling out that survey for, I think, well over a year. Mostly negative.
The 311 survey?
Yes. The 311 survey, again, it's been a long time, so that should be, but we're relying on the agency to give us the data, or that should be automated.
It's a data set that I think would be included on the open data portal. I know I'm not sure exactly when those surveys started. I know it was fairly recent. So again, we will work with the 311 open data coordinator to make sure that data set is released on open data.
That's how we correct the situations, and if we don't get that's, because my constituents say, I always, fill out that survey, and they come up to me, do you know about the results, at least for our district? And I say, no, I don't. And so that's, what
we'd be happy to follow up with you after the
Councilmember
hearing,
Botcher said is
Councilmember,
very
with
important,
the
because
release date for that.
we do hear from the complaints on 311 that nothing was resolved, and they're telling us it was. The only, again, the only way to level the playing field is the survey. Otherwise, it goes into into thin air, and we never, it's allowed to stand. So
Yeah.
that's our recourse. It's important to get that survey. If you can do anything about that.
Yeah, we're happy to follow up after the hearing with the release date for that data set.
Yeah, good point. Thank you, Councilmember Holden.
Thank you.
I'd also like to acknowledge Councilmember Vicky Palladino, who's joined us. Welcome. I have a couple more questions, and then I'll see if members have any other questions before advocates and folks that are testifying. Let me make sure I repeated. Right. I just want to expand a little bit more on the questions regarding data sets and the responsibility that agencies have to provide that data, right? And I'm just going to paint the picture that you've painted for me. Let me know if it's accurate, right? Your open data coordinators your team works with open data coordinators at those agencies to figure out what are the appropriate data sets that they can ultimately provide data for that then you are able to publish on the site. Are there instances where agencies are not, and they're essentially setting up their own goals, right? Their own deadlines, is my understanding. That's correct. What happens, and does it happen often, that agencies are not meeting their own goals, that agencies are unable to provide that data? and what happens. What does accountability look like in those instances? And I'm particularly interested in the two agencies that we've highlighted, PD and DOE.
Yep. So we have a few methods that we use to sort of make sure that agencies are being held publicly accountable for their delivery of open data sets. We publish on the Open Data Portal a dashboard, an open data dashboard that has all of the agencies' performance towards their own goals in terms of releasing data at the frequency that they said that they would release it, whether or not data sets are late to be released, again, against the agency's own benchmark of when that data should be available publicly, and all of that, all of those sort of performance measures that we use to, when we work with agencies, to say, like, hey, where are you on having this data set be released, are also...
Whose responsibility is that from the team to approach those open data coordinators to say, you're late?
It's part of our regular communications with open data coordinators, is that, we're tracking data sets that are scheduled for release, for our own purposes as well, to make sure that, all of the, if there's engineering resources or other sort of resources that are required for the publication of that data set, that we're sort of allocating our time, towards those appropriately as well. So I think it's, we're using these regular check-ins. We're using these sort of relationships to have these conversations with agencies about how well they're doing towards their own goals. If they're late, we can encourage them to we definitely encourage them to provide a reason why that data set is going to be late. Frequently, it's around resources within the agency. Agencies are also working in sort of a constrained budget environment, and so the IT staff and the data staff to produce data sets on the agency side, if they're short staffed, then that can affect the timelines for agencies as well. We don't have there's, apart from sort of, public, making sure that everything that we're doing is publicly available and that everybody is sort of working towards those same goals that are being released publicly. That's our main sort of tool for helping agencies deliver on their obligations for their responsibilities for open data.
And the frequency of which agencies provide that data, that is also determined by that agency?
It's determined by the agency, but it is also really determined by the data set. If a data set is only updated once a year, high school graduation rates come to mind. There's not a lot of utility in updating that data at other points in time. So it's both sort of what makes natural sense for that data set. How often is that data set updated? Zachary mentioned the census. There's data sets that have different sort of natural cadences, and then it's also a resources question on the part of the agency, and then also on the part of sort of our team to build automations to be able to release data frequently.
And in the last, I'll say 2 years, roughly, what is the percentage of data sets that are updated on time? Or whatever time frame that you can give to me.
Data sets that are currently published that get updated sort of on a
Based on their own
cadence?
timelines, right?
Are you talking about data sets that haven't been released yet, or data sets that are already released?
That are already released.
So updating existing data sets,
Yeah,
not publishing brand new ones.
How frequently do the daily data
Yeah.
sets get updated daily? We're looking at the dashboard.
Sure. I'm curious to see. I'm looking for opportunities to improve. Obviously, a big benefit to having this law and this tool is a lot of what my colleagues here said. It is about transparency. It's 100% about accountability, but it's also about promoting trust that New Yorkers have in government. And so, if I'm getting complaints where folks feel that certain agencies are behind on providing that data that they themselves have determined are able to provide by a certain timeline, that is there has to be accountability. So that's why I asked that question, but I'm also looking for opportunities to improve. So if you have a sense of the percentage of agencies that are on time, that are doing well, that are doing their thing responsibly.
So right now, if you exclude all of the historical data sets or the data sets that are updated on some irregular or less predictable basis, we currently have around 63% of the data sets that we can track to be on time
Okay.
are on time.
Yeah, and is the reason primarily what Martha said? I guess when you're checking in with these agencies, what is the reason that agencies are saying they're unable to provide it?
So I think there is, in some cases, it's really a matter again of like how do we define on time, and we're continuing to improve that definition. So right now, when a data set we have, let's say, an automatic check every day for a data set. And that what we say publicly is, well, this data set is updated daily because we check for new data each day. If we check for new data and nothing changed for a day, for a week, that data set doesn't change. And our records would say, well, this data set's not updated on time. When in reality, it's just reflecting that no data has come in for a day or for a week. So it's on time. Our automation is working, it's running, all the data is there. So there's a question of like definitions that we're getting at. And one thing we've started to do with that is differentiate between how often do we check for new data versus how often do we expect new data. So that number, the 63%, will be increasing as that continues to propagate and we get a better understanding of that distinction.
Thank you. I have a couple more questions, and then I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Councilmember Palladino, for questions. Is there a data set that you think Open Data should have that they don't have right now? A data set, excuse me.
Good question. I definitely think that there are new initiatives and new programs happening in New York City all the time, and we always look forward to the release of data related to new initiatives. Certainly there are lots of things going on all the time. Specific examples. We have a newly designated open data coordinator for the Office of Asylum Seeker Operations that was created by executive order recently. So we're looking forward to working with him on the release of data related to the asylum seeker operations. There's always new things happening in New York City and that generate new data sets, and we're pretty confident that our compliance process is pretty thorough about picking up those new things. We review the list of newly created offices. So whenever there's a new office that's created by executive order, we contact them to make sure that they have an open data coordinator as required by the law. So always new things to look forward to in open data.
Okay. Okay, and my last couple of questions. No, that's fine. Okay, no worries.
There's a lot of questions, but that's
Thank
because
you.
I missed it.
Councilmember Palladino is really active in this committee, and I appreciate you being here. Don't worry about it, though. It's okay.
Terrible because I'm late coming to the party and I want to hear everything that you have already said.
No worries.
So it's more about the accuracy and how many people participate, what makes your agency
Vicki,
effective.
turn your mic on. Are you asking them?
I guess so. Yes, I guess I am. I'm very interested in, and I'm very sorry that I missed this. I had another hearing and then a press conference, so I apologize to everybody and excuse my ignorance if this was already been asked. I'm very interested and open-minded to this is a newly formed agency that you're putting together to collaborate with other agencies in the city. I just want to make sure I understand the baseline.
Yeah, the Open Data Program is actually a pretty mature program. It's been around since 2012.
Okay.
Councilmember Brewer authored the local law that created the Open Data Program. So the program has been around for quite some time. The administration of the program has shifted slightly with the Mayor's Executive Order 3 that brought the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics into the new Office of Technology and Innovation, which has a few different legacy technology-related offices and agencies now together kind of in one happy family. I represent that office, the Office of Data Analytics, which has existed also since about the same time that the
Which
Open
leads
Data
me to the
program
next
started.
question. How many people make up your data
unit?
analytics? I want to know.
The Office of Data Analytics is approximately 20 people. We recently had
20
some
people?
Yes. We recently had some new staff join, so I'm going to get you an exact number after this hearing. But the Open Data program is staffed by five full-time employees and then some additional resources.
To cover the entire city of New York.
And 100 Open Data coordinators, one at every single agency and office.
Okay, and what are some of the agencies that you have?
Every single one.
So we run the gamut.
Soup to nuts.
Right, just right up into most recently the migrant crisis.
Any agency or office in the city, including newly created offices like the Office of Asylum Seeker Operations, needs to have an Open Data coordinator. Yes.
And how do you acquire your information?
We
Daily?
It depends on the data set. Some data sets are updated daily. So 311, for example, we have an automated process that updates every day that data set with all of the service requests that 311 has, and then also updates service requests if the resolution changes. But we also have some data sets that get updated once a year or census.
Because I love the principle and I love the idea.
Yeah.
It's just that I have to just keep reminding myself, and I think everybody does too, is that we don't live in Omaha, Nebraska. We live in New York City. So this is a huge undertaking. And the account for accuracy, we're talking about DDC. We're talking about DEP. We all know what's going on. We're talking about DOT. We're talking about, those are just three major. Now we tack on to that. That's not even touching anything else. How do you keep track of every single thing that's going on in this city with an ounce or two of real accuracy? Because I've always found out, though I'm only doing this now in my third year, I will say this, that when everything is broken down to a borough level, we are able to keep much better track of what's going on. Let's say in my district in particular, District 19, we have our contacts in District 19, and we're able to go to them right away. You're dealing with this on a 5-borough level with 20 people. Is that correct? To manage everything that's going on in this city, every major operation that's going on in the city. That's a lot of work.
There's 20 people, but they also have the support. That's what she mentioned, the support from the Open Data coordinator.
Right.
But it's not enough.
No,
I get
it's
your
not,
point.
no.
But it's, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you do it.
Lots of
I
spreadsheets.
find myself saying that a lot. I really don't, and I just find that when we break this very large pie that we live in New York City into smaller pieces, it's much easier to eat the whole pie one slice at a time. So I hope that's how you run the agency, because that's the best way to help everybody all the way around.
I make a lot of references to how to eat an elephant, which is just one bite at a time.
One bite at a
Gotta
time.
keep biting.
that.
Yeah.
And that's why I like things broken up at the borough level.
That's right. Thank
Thank
you, Councilmember Palladino. Maybe she should do another trainings.
Oh yeah.
Well, actually, the whole committee. We'll follow up. Yeah, just to make sure. Do we, just before, I've got like 2 more questions. Do we have a data set on how many FOIL requests the city received by agencies?
We do. Yes.
We do? Oh, wonderful.
And we also recently, in the last few years, collaborated with with Doris to update the FOIL request form, to have a checkbox to indicate whether or not that FOIL request also includes data, which helps us review FOIL requests, even more efficiently, to look for data that has been released via FOIL that should also be on the Open Data portal.
And you, Martha, you mentioned this before, but what, because some agencies provide their data based on like their FOIL request?
It's one of the things
Or
we
they
review.
respond with their FOIL, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if an agency does release data via FOIL, that data also needs to be released on the Open Data portal. So we ask the agencies as a part of their compliance process to tell us what data sets they've released via FOIL, so we can then work with them to make sure that there's a publication schedule for those data sets on Open Data.
Is that more tedious? Is there more effort there?
No. I mean, I think, I don't know, Zachary can.
More effort compared to
to just having them respond directly to the data sets as opposed to providing it with like their FOIL response? Is that what happens?
I think that one of the key differences between FOIL and open data is that open data is continuous and forever, essentially. So FOIL requests will frequently ask for like a certain subset of information for like a month, where for open data, what we're working with agencies on is setting up a structure to get that data in perpetuity and then sort of document like every possible case of it. So it's not just like one individual's request for a certain borough, but how do you get all that information available for the entire city? So oftentimes the work that's required to go into open data, yes, there's a lot of additional things that we take pride in doing with agencies to make that information accessible.
But it is actually easier for agencies, for data sets that agencies respond to FOIL requests about frequently, it's much easier for the agency to have that data released and updated on open data, because then when a person who requests it via FOIL, can be directed to that data set and help themselves to whatever data that they were looking for in the first place.
Thank you. And my last question is just related to the future. What do you want to see? What does it look like in 5-10 years? Are there any opportunities for collaborations or partnerships? What are you most looking forward to? And what do you need to make that happen? I know we are constantly talking about the budget and resources. You said it yourself multiple times that agencies use that as a reason for why they can't make their own deadlines, which is understandable. But how do you want to see the office expand? What do you need? How many more people do you need? How much more money do you need? Thank you.
All of it, all of the people,
Yes.
and all of them.
Give me a number.
Give me all that stuff. I think we're really excited about this program. I think there's not a lot of programs that I think still maintain this level of excitement and enthusiasm after 10 years of I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe there's lots of things people are very excited about. I'm very excited about open data after 10 years still. We are, things that I feel really passionately about include data literacy, again, like with this new frontier of new tools and new applications of large language models or AI or machine learning in government contexts, or even in just people's sort of everyday lives. I think having the skills and knowledge to understand how to kind of interpret a data set, how to know like how your personal data looks in data sets. These are all going to be really foundational pieces of being a citizen in this new era. And I think open data is an amazing tool to help build that education or build that sort of knowledge among the citizenry of the city and of the world. We love collaborating with open data programs from around the country, from around the world. One of the coolest things we get to do is meet open data programs from other countries. We've met with cities in South Korea, with lots of different cities in Europe. We collaborate with the London Office of Technology and Innovation pretty frequently. Many of them will participate in our Open Data Week events coming up in March. And I think I also, referenced that we are also excited to collaborate with other users of the Socrata platform to help drive improvements there and make the user interface easier for everyone. I think we can always do more with more. I would love to see the data team, the open data team, sort of to build it as large as we possibly can. But I think I'm really proud of this team and the work that they've done and the way they've been able to keep this program sort of really alive and evolving and serving millions of people with the resources that we have.
So you don't need any more resources.
I need all of the resources.
I need you to be very clear on that you need more.
We appreciate your advocacy on behalf of the Open Data Program.
It's all these agencies. Okay, well, thank you so much. You have done tremendous, and look forward to any of the remaining follow-ups. I'm going to pass it off to Irene so we can move into public testimony.
Thank you again for your testimony. And now I will start with public is my mic on? Yes, I'm sorry. And now we'll start with the public testimony. And I would like to welcome Noel Hidalgo, Rachel Fass, and Christopher Leon Johnson to testify.
Yeah.
Any order is fine.
Great.
You can start.
Start. Hi, my name is Noel Hidalgo, Executive Director of Beta NYC. Thank you for inviting us, Chair Gutierrez and fellow council members, and great to have the council staff here. Now more than ever, the city's data analytics team and the open data program need resources to ensure that other agencies can do more with less. Since its inception, the data analytics team has streamlined internal and external data sharing practices, and their work has fundamentally improved people's lives. We are a quarter way through the 21st century, on the verge of a climate catastrophe, and need to ensure that the human investments that we make at this moment carry us through the middle part of the century. Consumer technology systems will morph rapidly, and the climate will dictate swift responses to people's needs. In sum, we need adaptable people who will be able to be around for quite a bit. Additionally, artificial technology and machine learning tools require clean metadata. We cannot build a 21st century government on the back of systems that contain poor data. I am going to hurry through the opportunities and insights that I have that I've emailed to the committee. So first and foremost, if we're talking about a 21st century open data team for the city, we need the open data team that is currently down 5 people from pre-pandemic levels to reestablish those 5 roles. While the mayor has lifted elements of the hiring freeze, we ask that the open data team completely be restored to pre-pandemic capacity and add 3 more people, one that's focused on civic engagement, another one that's focused on data literacy, and another person in engineering. We need to cultivate a new generation of leadership. Agencies, and this is broadly across agencies, must modernize their data systems and update civil service system to ensure that we have a system that works for this decade, not the last one. We need government technical talent ready to understand new technologies and ensure that agencies are not being sold snake oil. We need a new generation of technical leadership that understands the value of service design, data portability, and open technologies. We need to cultivate a new generation of technology leaders that can do more with less. The Analytics Exchange, the Service Design Forum, and the Open and Data Ambassadors programs are 3 current examples of demonstrating this type of leadership. It needs to be combined with an apprenticeship program that prepares various college students to foster a career in public interest technology. Beta NYC's Civic Innovation Apprenticeship Program is an example of that, and we would love to see institutional resources added to ensure that these programs grow. Institutionalizing in regards to making sure that ODCs and ODAs, the Open Data Ambassadors, are really have the resources. We would like to see those positions become full-time inside of agencies. So we were asking for Open Data Coordinators and Open Data Ambassadors to become actually agency positions. Can I go for a little bit longer? Thank you. In regards to
1 more minute. No.
1 more minute, thank you. In regards to accountability, it's kind of appalling to hear council members ask the open data team about 311 data when we all know that there are agencies that are essentially juking the stats. Those agencies need to be held accountable. We're asking that agencies are held accountable in budget hearings. And so we want to ensure that every single agency, when they come asking for the justification of money, that they describe their data infrastructure, their technology infrastructure, their data management practices. They need to be held directly accountable around their FOIL requests and the responses. It should not be up to the responsibility of the open data team to bear the burden for the rest of the city when council has the responsibility and the opportunity to be asking agencies directly. When it comes to data publishing, there are 2 particular agencies that do not have their crap together. The first is the Department of Education. They continue to be an outlier with non-standard data publishing practices, and I cannot understand why NYPD continues to publish monthly CompStat data in Excel spreadsheets at the police precinct level while it doesn't publish that information to the Open Data Portal, and they have their own fancy CompStat 2.0 website where you can't really cleanly extract historical data. When it comes down to digital and data literacy, we're on the verge of a transformative shift on how people interact with and incorporate information. If we are not teaching New Yorkers how to look at data and to review source data, they will be prey to misinformation. Open Data Week, School of Data, Data Through Design, the Open Data Ambassadors Program, and the Mapping for Equity are just a few fundamental tools that this government should adequately resource to increase data literacy while battling fake news and misinformation. Thank you very much for this time.
Hi, good morning, Chair Gutierrez and Councilmember Palladino. My name is Rachel Foss, and I'm the Senior Policy Advisor for reInvent Albany. reInvent Albany advocates for transparent, accountable government in New York State, and we were instrumental in drafting and passing New York City's 2012 Open Data Law. I was testified about it more than 10 years ago with a different hat, so it's nice to be back today. When we thank you for holding this oversight hearing. And thanks to the leadership of the Council, New York City passed the world's first open data law, and our successes and failures are closely watched by government everywhere. Before getting into some of the analysis of the 2023 Open Data Report published by OTI, I wanted to highlight two principles we think are really important that will make open data successful. This hearing today is very important, and it's important for two reasons. One is the public pressure and showing that there is public interest and in need for this. And the other, I think, is that looking at ways to continuously improve the program. Second, we really want to highlight automating open data as a very high priority. And I'll say it this way, I think it's important for automation to happen because of the limited resources. We noted in our testimony there are 437 data sets that have 435, that have not yet been automated. That's about half of the total list of data sets that are able to be automated. Appreciated OTI explaining a little bit about the process there, but I would love to see a data set for that specifically in terms of the schedule. How quickly can we get these things automated, and highlighting some of the issues around, is this something that's only updated every 10 years? Having that information would be helpful so we can get a better sense of the progress in that area and the challenges, right? We appreciate a lot of the continuous improvement efforts, the policy documents, the creation of that dashboard, continuation of Open Data Week. With Beta NYC, we are big fans of School of Data and a lot of the events around Open Data Week, and it gives some good visibility to the program. We also appreciate, the technical standards and policy docs. And these will help the program succeed. On the budget front, I second the notion to get back at least where we used to be. I'd like to give a sort of comparison. We work a lot with the MTA Open Data team, and they have 3 full-time staff just on open data. And they have 46 agency staffers within the MTA that are those data stewards. They're about a fifth the size of New York City. So, that would say 15 staff if you were to be at the MTA levels. At the same time, the MTA staff have told me repeatedly that they don't have enough. 3 people is way, way too small for the amount of work they have to do. So I think, if you scale it up, it really shows you that there needs to be a lot more resources. My testimony goes into a few things that I just encourage you to look at later. We looked at 3 of the metrics documents. Metrics data sets, the FOIL metrics, the automation metrics, and then the, what else did I look at? Data set removal. So we've got some interesting stats on there on where agencies are doing well and where they're not doing well. And I just encourage you to look at that if you want to look at individual agency compliance issues. So thank you so much.
Rachel. Yeah. Christopher?
Ready? Hello, my name is Christopher Leon Johnson. So thank you, Chair Gutierrez, for having this hearing. Now, I wasn't here for earlier. I was busy covering this rally about being against congestion pricing. I know this had nothing to do with the hearing, but Jennifer, I think you should be against congestion pricing. But we can talk off the record about that. That's fine. Now, sorry about that. We talk off the record about that. So, but I want to talk about open data. Now, where is our public advocate? Where is our so-called public advocate, Jumaane Williams, about this stuff? He should be here every public hearing, every hearing about open data. You know why? Because Jumaane Williams is the chair of Coptic. And everybody in the city had to know about Coptic. Coptic oversees all the data in New York City. Now, this public advocate, he makes sure that this is not mentioned about his office. All he cares about is being woke and defunding the cops and crippling the NYPD instead of being more transparent to the people. Say, I'm the chair of Coptic and I care about the data. So this is my advice, Mrs. Gutierrez. You're the chair of the technology committee. You need to introduce a bill into the city council with the help of the ethics committee with Sandra Ung to remove Jumaane Williams as the chair of Coptic and make Coptic a separate agency that the mayor's office and the city council could appoint someone that is independent, that is not elected official, because Jumaane Williams is not doing his job as the chair of Coptic. He is a horrible chair for Coptic. He does not care about open data in New York City. You have this, the people here that actually represents OTI cares more about data than the public advocate. Where's our public advocate about this? Where's our so-called public advocate? I bet if the Coptic was about you allowed to defund the cops with OTI, he'll make it a big deal. But because it's only about data, and like meta stuff, he doesn't give a damn. So we have to get rid of Jumaane Williams as the chair of Coptic. We have to get rid of this position. Hey, abolish the whole position and merge it with OTI, and merge it with the Department of OTI. Please, because Jumaane is not here. Where's Jumaane? Where anybody in this office right here that's a representative of NYCPA, the New York City Public Advocate, please raise your hand. I don't see nobody raising their hand here. You know why? Because they don't give a damn. All they care about is defunding the cops, equipping the cops, and protecting liars like Yusuf Salam, who lies on cops all the time. That's all he cares about. He doesn't give a damn about no open data. He doesn't give a damn about anything. It's all about defunding the cops and protecting WP, protecting the woke agenda, and that's all he cares about. So where's our public advocate? We got to get rid of the public advocate position, because the public advocate position ain't doing nothing. If people in the open data movement need to start calling this stuff out. And I know you just read Albany, that's funded by Mark Gorton. They need to start calling this stuff out too. But we all know why, because Mark Gorton funds transportation alternatives, he funds open plans, he funds the Rise Alliance, and he funds Reinvent Albany, and Jumaane Williams is for congestion pricing, he's for the Bike Bro lobby, so he's not going to say anything about this stuff. So get rid of Jumaane Williams. I'm not trying to be rude. Get rid of Jumaane Williams. He's captain to TransAlt. He's captain to all these nonprofits. He doesn't give a damn about no open data. So that's all I got to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone. Chair, do you have any question of Councilmember Palladino for the advocates? No. I want to thank everyone for incredible testimonies today, and this will conclude our hearing.
Can I add one thing about Coptic, though?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
One minute.
Oh,
one minute.
No. So, I mean, Coptic is a fundamental part of the charter in regards to holding the agency, not agencies, but holding the administration accountable. Coptic is very pioneering when it was first put into the city charter. When we talk about like what are the things that we want to be adding resources to, Coptic is something that should have more resources, and the public advocate is actively talking about bringing Coptic back again.
Yeah, and having done a run at Coptic with public advocate Tish James, it requires the administration to send people. So it's not just on the public advocate, but I was part of a prior reinvigorating Coptic effort, and it requires the administration participating.
Yeah.
Fundamentally.
Thank you for that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And I was also checked the Zoom. There is no one in our Zoom room right now. And if you wish to testify and you haven't been called, please let us know. And I don't see any hands right now, so this will conclude our hearing. And I want to turn to Chair Gutierrez to adjourn the hearing.
Thank you. This meeting's adjourned.
Trial by fire. I don't. Anna is in Ohio for a while. Prior administration. I didn't want them to get mad at me.
Has Shimani's team reached out to you about
No. I don't know if anyone else wants to work on it. Legit, I was kind of a industry idea. I was to liaisons, like a guy who was excited about having your team and lawyers. And oh my God, there's also a lot of and you know so lovers and you care.
they are interested in reinvigorating this, but they don't know what resources.
I know. We've been so weird.
No, I was.
Do I look taller and forget that I
Sometimes we're in person with data classes.
We do. Yeah, we would love to have a training committee and let us know if that's something that's of interest.
Great job. I really like that intro. So please share to the team all of the hard work. See if there's another face.
Oh, this is Vic.
I'm Victoria. Hi, Victoria. Nice to meet you. Thank you for getting all the scheduling done.
I'm trying.
I mean, there's not even getting
We could maybe provide like a tour of the 311 call center, or the 311 training or something like that. If you're data training, so get in touch.
Thanks for
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But yeah, OTI, now that every time there's a new administration, everybody kind of gets, looked around, so it's mayor's office, it's to the mayor's office, and HB, that building was like, like the mayor's office of MAS and some of the administration, mayor's office of administration are there, so.
NGV. We'll talk to you.
Yeah. I need Zachary said that he's like OTI, like one, there's a
Okay, no, that's why we should have come up with some others.
Coming back.
But Nathan's on the distributions twice and kept turning me on. I think it's fine.
Okay, great. Great. Thanks. Thanks for all that you do in North Brooklyn. Crash. Deadly. Crash.
Yeah, excited to talk about.
Yeah. And like we're dealing with the background of the veterans, like high impact.
You can't be holding on to tens of millions of dollars. I'm telling you.
You have one more
I'm so sorry I was late. This was really interesting.
We'll have a great training there, guys. We should do it with like
Imagine if only agencies had the resources to actually do the changes and infrastructure that it took to make those changes happen.
Don't keep talking nonsense.
Data is probably the most important thing right now. We can keep track of it. And I was just saying, SCA to my and I think if I open up that book about where is the money going? They're getting $10 billion a year to redo school projects, to bring school projects up to date. They've got money stuck in the pipeline for 4 or 5 years. I want to know where the money is. This is why I say, this is why when you say data, okay, so SCA on there.
Thank you guys. Beautiful.
We'll do the training, but please don't go crazy. It'll be fine.
It's very simple and super straightforward.
I haven't done it since I was 7. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna stand on this side. Will you do my training just for them? To rail the whole thing for 30 minutes? Over here.
In front of the seal? In front of the seal?
In front of the seal.
You want to be in the middle?
Just a little bit on presence. More is it?
That way we can be in
I don't
the
claim to
range
do
of height.
presence, you know what I mean? And there's look at this techie data crew.
Be less. Also, this is not my real height.
We are on the side of releasing more stuff to the public.
Is your real height? Yeah, I wear glasses.
All of us are showing our real height. I have spurs, Tom Cruise.
Don't overcomplicate it. Just tell us what it is.
You too. Hopefully I'll be back next year and hopefully before then.
It's great to meet you guys in person.
No problem.
Yes, I will be there.
I didn't say it. I didn't have time.
Yeah. Oh, I will. I can text
Yeah.
her. She told me we're She was like, my feet are swollen. I was very worried. Yeah.